Okay, everybody. So, while it might not be in the title or tags, because I'm actually, I have some weird counterculture feelings in me. So, like probably from my punk rock roots, where I don't like doing clickbait. I like titling my videos appropriately, but when I see that even the appropriate title kind of turns into clickbait, I cringe, So this one is actually about 2 videos ago. I made a video about how you could actually petition for a commitment for Eugenia Cooney, depending on which state she was in. And first off, I'll just say that a lot of commenters on that video said, "She's in California!" When I Googled it and it said that she moved to New York, and she used to be in Massachusetts and Connecticut, right? It doesn't matter, right? Whichever place that she ends up being, that you're going to be putting it on her. The state laws are the ones that you're going to have to abide by, but there are a lot of similarities between all of these states. And I'm going to specifically speak about one hurdle that the commenter who originally brought this to my attention, he deleted his comment or something, or like the spam filter caught it and deleted it. I don't know, but he was making a good enough point. But I'm going to have to bounce off a different commenter that did make the point as well. He says, "So you look up that stuff and it says that on a piece of paper, therefore that is what you actually think will happen in the world? LOL, yeah, right. She's probably going to die. I mean, dude is right. She's either going to the hospital or the deathbed." He's talking about Repsion saying that. So the point that I'm bouncing off here from Stable Genius Progressive is again what that other guy's comment that I can't find was about, and it's that certain forms will have misleading restrictions to them, such as the one that I showed to the screen from yesterday, which was the emergency commitment form version from New York, right? So one of the boxes right next to where you would sign, where you sign, it was labeled licensed professional, and then the one of the boxes says, what your title is, right? So what I meant in my video that anyone can petition is that anyone could have filled out the boxes on top. You can take the fillable form and type it out for them, and they will sign it if they find that those things are accurate. Different states do this differently. In my state, so let's say I'm at a facility where the person is already in the facility as a patient or a client, and the family comes and they want to put an emergency commitment on them because they're getting ready to do an involuntary commitment. They might have filled out the form themselves, right? And the forms here in Colorado normally don't say what your title is in that other box. They'll say, what is your relationship to the person that you're petitioning against? I usually write staff in that box. And then after signing my name in the other box, I'll put my title at the end of my name. The little alphabet soup that certain people have when they're licensed or certified in the state, right? So that's how it works for me. But if I were to have the family fill out that portion, I'd put whatever have them put whatever their relationship to the client is, like friend, sister, mother, uncle, aunt, whatever. The relationship that they have to them. Now, the New York forms that I showed were actually from a specific part of their system. And the thing is, these forms are not uniform among different facilities. right? So the form that I'm used to, usually, if I were to go to a different hospital system or a different facility that handles residential treatment, they're going to have a different style of form that they came up with themselves. They're going to read the law, each company that can give these services, and they're going to create their own forms based on what their interpretation of the law is, right? There's certain points that they have to meet, but generally the forms have the same information from facility to facility. There's a big block that is empty that just says, put your criteria right here, right? And then sign, date, and what is your relationship to them. The form that I showed, because it was from the actual department that handles mental health in New York, it said licensed person, right? That is not the only kind of person that could have filled out that form. But still, another part of that form says under penalty of perjury, right? The risk that you take by trying to commit somebody is, if the commitment does not go through, and then this person, because this form becomes part of their own health records, if this person just goes down to the hospital and gets a copy of their own health records and then wants to sue you for, say, the unlawful detention that they had because you lied about the criteria, well, they can do that under penalty of perjury. Like, you could get a felony for trying to commit somebody and it not going through because whatever you said to have them held at that facility was wrong. So, yeah, you can fill it out for somebody, but there is a process whereby they're going to review what you filled in, and they're probably, if they're like me, like if a family comes to a facility that I am there to help, and they want their family member committed, and they filled out their emergency commitment form, and it just has a lot of bullshit on it, like stuff that doesn't really matter to the case at hand, and they're like trying to write outside of the margins because they're trying to put every part of this guy's story into the commitment form. I'm going to take what they collected as their case for holding this guy, and I'm going to boil it down to the bullet points that are actually relevant, and I'm going to completely rewrite the form that they're trying to submit and put myself as staff after reviewing each of these things. Like, if they say that this person has had multiple hospital intakes for, whatever their problem is, I'm going to attempt to look that up. Or I'm just going to ask the client themselves, is this true? Is this true? Is this true? Which a lot of times they'll just admit it, and if they endorse it by saying, yes, that is true, then, you can go ahead and say on the form, client endorses that they use meth, or that, that they used meth for the past year, like whatever you can get them to say, yes, they do, that is then, something that you're not going to have to face as far as perjury, because they endorsed it. So anyways, the process here has some filters to try to make things run well, right? It greases the wheels, because if people were just submitting their own forms without professionals looking for what the actual criteria in what they're saying is, they would be submitting probably 10-page essays on a person's life, which we really don't need as far as this process goes. There's, in most of the forms that I see in Colorado, there's 3 to 5 lines, right? And an example that I might write on one of their forums would be, first, let's say it's alcohol related, right? It's an alcoholic. I would be writing blood alcohol level, BAL, equals whatever they came in. So like 0.250, right? On intake as the police brought them in for intoxication. That's an important thing that I would add, because if it was an ambulance or a police officer, whichever one that brought them into the facility, I would say that those people also had an idea that the person was intoxicated. It's further proof that I'm not just the only one that saw this, right? Next sentence would probably be all about still the physical signs that I can see. They're emaciated from meth use. They're bloodshot eyes, unsteady gait. They're walking funny for the layman. Yelling, which sometimes I feel bad when I'm saying that they're yelling and they have no volume control, because sometimes what they're yelling is actually that they're against their will, and it's weird because it's a form stripping someone of their civil rights, and here they are saying that they have a right to leave, and you're like, not so fast, and they're yelling because they don't want to be there, and you're filling out a form that's going to keep them there. It's kind of which came first, the chicken or the egg, in a way. So the next sentence I would write would be, this client cannot control their behavior as evidenced by. And like I said in the previous video, if it was for health and welfare, it would be something like chronic homelessness, unable to care for their own basic needs, unable to find shelter, unable to perform basic hygiene, infested with lice, lost their kids to DCS, all sorts of things like that. Has been arrested multiple times for certain issues that were all while they were intoxicated, just got out of jail for issues related to whatever their drug of choice was. Lots of those, right? These are behavioral things that I'm noticing that are proof that they are unable to control their lives because of their drug or because of their mental illness, right? So the next sentence after I've listed all of the different things that I can either see myself or have gotten word of and have gotten them to endorse and tell me, or I can look up in a computer because I have access to something that will corroborate it. After I've written all that stuff, usually it will say something like, this client is placed on this commitment for safety of themselves or others, or this client is placed on this commitment for health and welfare, or this client is placed on this commitment because they are unable to make rational decisions for themselves. Those are the kind of sentences I would end it with. All of that fits in 3 to 5 lines, depending on how, or depending on how much room that institution really wants you to be writing, right? And when you take all of what people are going to be saying about, say, Eugenia Cooney to account, the person who's going to be accepting Eugenia Cooney's petition and saying, well, is there merit to they're going to be boiling it down to just a couple sentences, right? And so when you look at how you might postulate that Eugenia Cooney's mom is actually benefiting from her being as thin as she is because the videos are shocking and therefore it brings in ad revenue. If Eugenia Cooney was in a relationship with her mom where her mom was her conservator or her guardian, where she's handling her money, you know, and maybe part of the production of these videos, you might say that her mom is exploiting the thing that is maybe going to kill her anorexia, if that's what she has, right? That's a lot of word vomit. If you're trying to tell like a police officer or a therapist or, you know, a medical doctor this entire story, you got to boil it down to like 4 or 5 words, even though when you're explaining to them why it's true, like these are the videos that you can go see here on YouTube. You know, here's where she is with her, and you won't find any record of her trying to commit her own daughter because she's profiting off of living with her daughter. That's their mutual income. Stuff like that. That's you can say that to them to help prove it, but it's going to be a very abbreviated argument when it actually gets placed on the form. So this actually results in a lot of people being dissuaded from carrying out the process because they believe that they can't be the ones to initiate the process. Because a lot of forms, they because of the institution's best practices, they will put down, what is your title? You know, who is the licensed person who wrote this? And that's because they really want the licensed people at that facility, the certified people at that facility, to take your story and boil it down, verify it, and then put themselves as the person who is writing this up. Because the average layperson just does not understand the rest of the process. If this is going to court, and say from the emergency commitment level, it's going to go to the involuntary commitment level, which could be, you know, a year or more for her to be in treatment. You know, if it's going to go beyond that initial emergency commitment, which here in Colorado, unless she's addicted to diuretics that are making her that skinny, and she psychologically, which is a stretch in and of itself, you can't use like the 5-day drug hold on her. You'd have to use the M1 hold, which for mental health in Colorado, which is only 3 days. 3 days. And after she's on one of them and doesn't like it, she'll probably take steps to avoid having another one put on her, like not walking into a hospital. You know? But after that 3 days, if it hasn't been before a judge where the petitioner goes there and says, yes, I would like to petition for the involuntary commitment, and then like another like 10 days of extension happens, and then that's so that both sides can prepare their court case, right? Unless the person being petitioned on decides to stipulate to conditions to go to treatment, and that's through the involuntary commitment coordinators trying to avoid a court case. It's kind of like a plea agreement for a criminal case, only basically it's a form where they say, yes, I admit I have a problem and I'm willing to go. It's called stipulating. It frees up the court from clutter, just like plea agreements with DAs do. So unless she stipulated, it's going to court. Like 10 days after the initial stuff, right? And she gets a say in court, like she gets her day in court to say, I don't think I have a problem. This is, this, and this. And do we have enough information based on her videos to say that we know what's going on in her life? I don't know. I really don't know if this is all just the extreme version of Thinspiration in anorexia nervosa. I don't know that. Maybe other people who stalk her on discussion forums that abound these days on some of our D-list YouTube celebrities. Maybe they know more than I do about what's actually going on, but if they're wanting to take what knowledge that they do have, and they think that they can make a good case, then more power to them. I just don't want people thinking that there's no way to do it, unless you're a blood relative or their parent or their guardian, that you can't get someone committed. It's anyone who has good knowledge of the situation can do this. There are licensed people who will be reviewing things at various different steps, but anyone can call for a health and welfare check, which would be one way to start this process. Anyone can call a hospital if she were to end up in that hospital and try to get a hold of a doctor and explain the situation. And that doctor could review it and start the process that way. If you have any other questions that I didn't cover at this point about the process, leave them in the comments below, and I will either comment or make another video. But I think I covered it all from the previous video. Laters.